This episode has been brought to you by CompleteNutra.com, whole family nutrition.
We love that you started this series with your mom's interview. If you have a good outlook mentally, a good outlook spiritually, when those disruptions occur, we can branch out and go, okay, well, I can't do this exercise, but I can do visualization. I can do meditation. I can do other things. So that we have to supplement and we have to have access to clean foods, which usually does mean things like learning how to grow your own sprouts, learning how to grow some herbs on your front porch or on your window box. Do you have to become an urban farmer? No. But you're probably going to be better off if you have a few tricks of your home gardening and your own home herbs. You have to have a variety. So for me, I eat a lot of the same base foods, but I incorporate a lot of different herbs and seasonings to make it taste different and feel different. And the other thing about health that I think is really obvious, but nobody wants to say it. So I'm going to be that little kid who says the emperor is buck naked. Americans eat too much food. They just eat too much. I literally was on the phone with a client a couple of days ago, and she said, I'm trying the new kit and I'm gaining weight. And I said, okay, so give me what you think your keto diet, like tell me what you're doing. And she said, I have 8 hours every 24 hours where I can eat. I said, okay. And she goes, I've gained 20 pounds because I just eat for 8 hours. I stop and I clean up the dishes and I go back to my computer and then I go, I'm hungry and I can eat during these 8 hours. I said, that's not how we do this. No, you need to have probably 2 meals in those 8 hours. So Americans need to literally be a little hungry. There's some incredible white paper that show that after about the age of 25, why? Because as we evolved as Homo sapiens in those hunting gathering days, we reproduced younger. By 25, you were done whelping your puppies, so to speak. You were done with that. So there's some very clear signs that we're supposed to start eating a little less. And it's literally true that after the age of 50, every 10 pounds that you're overweight will shorten your lifespan by 10 years. So we know Americans are eating too much. So it's not just access to healthy food, because I've literally had to talk people off the cliff where they were eating all healthy food, but just eating too much of it. So we have to learn how to develop, portion control, how much is right for me. Someone who's training to be an Ironman competitor is going to need a completely different amount of protein than someone who's fairly sedentary and does light housework.
Right.
And so the good news is we have a lot of different ways that we can challenge ourselves to learn. I love experimentation. I think experimenting is really rewarding. We can't assume that you and I know what our bodies need. And even with all my education, I can't really assume it. But I can see what happens when I do a small fast. I can see that I am shedding toxins. I can see the results of that. I can see that with intermittent fasting in my life, even though I'm over the age of 60, I can keep my weight down. I can stay fit. I can stay trim. These are really important things to me. My clients all really are baffled by how out of touch they are with their food. So I just want to review a couple more things. How social gatherings all the way through industrial age, all of our social gatherings were around meal times, or they involved things like indigenous dancing hours and then a meal.
Right.
So the communal aspect of food, so not only were they not separate from their food, they connected with the act of getting the food, then they totally connected with the act of participating and engaging with the food. So chewing your food and 70 times 7, and you go and you look at the pattern of the Tibetan monks, and they'll eat a very plain bowl of rice, but they'll chew each bite like 70 times. What's that about? There is a real communication process that we in modern days are losing, which has to do with the act of chewing and how it stimulates these glands here to then stimulate another gland called our pancreas to secrete digestive enzymes. So who we're being while we're eating, it turns out, really matters. If we have angry, fearful thoughts while we're eating, our body can't open up and process. If we're calm and relaxed and we chew a lot, we can actually get the best result from what we're eating. Yeah, it's really interesting. So
that's a very simple thing, too.
It's
just
so
something
simple.
you have to just think about.
But it's going to be a rehab. Yeah, it's going to be a process of rehabilitation. So one of my old, and I mean ancient mentors used to say, if you can get their digestion picked up a little bit, then it's like their brain clears out a little bit and they can actually look at what's on their plate or what volume's on their plate. But until you get them really digesting, it's almost like it's too much work. And that's what I've seen in our current times. people really feel either afraid to take on their health because there's so much information, disinformation. They just don't know what to do. They'd like to do something, they just don't know what. And then the other thing is, the minute they start, it's just all too much. 15 billion supplement. Well, what if you started with having your eating time be eating time? What if you started with making sure you chewed all your food and you just focused on drinking water the rest of the days throughout the day, not at mealtime? What if you just focused on becoming more conscious while you're eating to see how you
Those are very simple things, but it's something that require a little bit of thought to bring them into habits.
Yeah. Well, the giant con of this century is that we can sort of cheat Mother Nature and get away with it.
Right.
And
GMOs.
that's really the accurate way of describing it. So what we're all having to do is literally put an act of discipline on. It is very much an act of discipline. Dave, you and I are faced with way too many choices.
Yeah.
Even if we just looked at what to eat, we could spend an entire day or two just looking at which diet, which plan, how to do it. Blah, blah, blah. No, that can't possibly be the answer then. So we have to go deeper and more fundamentally to look at the process. If I can tell a before and after based on what I'm eating, that's really intelligent.
Yeah.
This is
why I didn't include the actual food choices in the nutrachallenge. I only included intermittent fasting in the nutrachallenge, especially after we met. I just realized something super profound, but it's very foundational. Everybody's different. Nobody specifically needs the exact same diet. Everybody has some different requirements that they need. And so that's why I couldn't really recommend a specific diet, because you're right. It's too confusing trying to diet. But when we think about the word diet, the interesting point I want to make about the word diet is our diet is what we eat. What we eat is our diet. So technically we're always on a diet. We're just...
yes.
You know what I mean? It's like we just are in this thing of, we're dieting. We're diet, but that means we're doing something other than what we eat normally. But what we eat normally is our diet. So we got to we have to make that into something that benefits us. Here's the other thing, just to go a little bit quickly. We are made to forget that GMOs and glyphosate are in everything we're eating too. Because a lot of times people are trying to eat healthy, but they don't realize they're eating glyphosate when they eat anything that has any kind of wheat in it. And you're right, it changed into the staff of death, unfortunately, and it makes me so sad. But it's like the GMOs and the glyphosate are insidiously hidden in almost everything people eat. And that's the problem with it, is we have to be so vigilant because it's not even listed. And so when we're trying to eat healthy, we're still getting poison into our bodies unless we're extremely vigilant. And so we can't, because we're trained to forget. They put a nice brown, all natural looking package with some leaves on the package and then say whole wheat. And we think, oh, that must be healthy. And so we are trying to be health conscious and still eating poison. And so I think it's just we're trained to forget. We're trained to not even think about it. And we have to think about it.
Right. Yeah. And so we have to think about it. So it's a little bit weird because in a way it's like we're in a battle and the enemy is all around us, but we can be very discerning. So can we outsmart the enemy? And this is just for lack of better ways of languaging the conversation.
I think so.
Not that I like war at all. But sometimes we are fighting a battle. And I think this is one of them where,
if your opponent thinks you're in a war, if your opponent thinks you're in a war, but you don't think you're in a war, you're still in a war. So you got to learn how to fight.
You're still in a war and you're probably not going to last.
Exactly. If your opponent thinks you're in a war, you got to learn how to fight.
You got to learn how to fight or just perish, just ready to go. So that's kind of looking at it today, is that people that are willing to develop the discipline. So let's talk about this for just a second. In order to have discipline, you have to have a burning reason why. If there's no burning reason why, there won't be the discipline. Think of anything you've ever accomplished in your life that required discipline. You'll see the origin of that was you had a desire, such as, I want to learn how to ride a bike so I can be like Billy down the street. Okay, But you keep going after it over and over and over until you had a breakthrough and you were riding on your own. That was a form of discipline. So for me, it's so much not about what we're eating as much as it is knowing what foods are guaranteed poison. We really shouldn't even call those food, and get those out of your house.
This episode has been brought to you by CompleteNutra.com, Whole Family Nutrition.